Hey there. Today we're going to go beyond words on the Soulful Speaking podcast. There's a quote out there. In this moment, I'm not 100% sure who said it. We're fascinated by the words, but where we meet is in the space between them. Soulful speaking doesn't start with the words, it starts in our bodies. It starts with our energy. It starts by feeling the vibration of our soul and letting that form into words. There's a pulse of our soul's purpose beneath and beyond words. It's the current at the center of our lives. And when we're speaking from that and listening to that and following that, everything feels easier and full of more flow, like we're on a level 1 or 2 river rafting trip, effortlessly flowing down the river. When we get into trouble in our lives and in speaking is when we're making it harder than it needs to be. We're coming from our minds instead of that vibration, that energy. And I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I want to back up a little bit and go into, again, that speaking and acting are very similar in a lot of ways. In theater and film, there are 3 really important jobs. And over in the speaking world, most speakers are trying to do all 3 on their own, all by themselves, isolated. There's the writer. The writer is the one who writes the script, who focuses on what's going to be said, who creates the story, comes up with what words will be said. There's the director. As the outside eye, the director is watching and helping to weave everything together to tell the story in a way that brings the audience along the journey and helps them understand the story. And then there's the performer, the actor, speaker, the one who physically steps up on the stage or in front of the green camera light and says the words, brings the story to life. They're the vessel through which everything flows. And it goes better and feels more awesome, both for the person saying it and for the audience watching and listening, if the speaker is fully alive from head to toe. And in the speaking world, the performer is the job that kind of gets the shaft. It gets overlooked. This is getting better. And when I first started my business 16 years ago, hardly any public speaking coaches out there were addressing this part at all. They weren't talking about the performance of it in the way that we do over in the theater. In fact, if they did say anything about the how we say those words, how we embody the message, they said, they got up and did it and said, do it like this. Over in the theater, that's called a line reading, and it's actually a no-no. Why? It's a no-no because that is not the way to unleash a vibrant, alive, from head to toe performance in another person. Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you did, they will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. She also said, words mean more than what is set down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with deeper meaning. In other words, it's not just what you say, it's also how you say it. In fact, I was born to do this, so I feel that the how you say it is far more important and impactful than the what, especially for soul-driven people. If you're a soul-driven person, you're probably talking to soul-driven people. And soul-driven people can feel the vibe behind the words. They can feel when we are in tune with ourselves, in alignment with our message. Here's one of my favorite ways of painting the "it's not just what you say, it's also how you say it" picture. Imagine for a moment, you can close your eyes if you're not driving. If you are driving, don't do that. Take a moment and imagine Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous "I Have a Dream" speech. See his face, feel his words and how they're landing on your body. Notice the energy, the vibe in the crowd as he's speaking. And now imagine that instead of being spoken by Martin Luther King Jr., those words are being spoken instead by Richard Nixon. Take that in. Feel how that lands on your body. And now, if your eyes were closed, go ahead and open them. If you're listening to this on one of the audio-only platforms, I'm making a face over here. It's the face when I used to do this in in-person situations, or when I have done this in in-person situations in the past, and I would flip it from Martin Luther King Jr. to Richard Nixon. That's the kind of face, the kind of cringy, shocked face that people would make. The Nixon version, when we imagine it, pales in comparison to Martin Luther King Jr. If you're so young, because I'm getting old enough now, I'm aware that maybe there are people out there who don't know who these two people are. If you don't know who Martin Luther King Jr. is, or you don't know that speech, Google it. I would play it for you, but I'm pretty sure that would violate some copyright laws out there somewhere. And I'd love to put a little good juju in the universe by having you Google it and watch it. If you're too young to know who Richard Nixon is, I have something fun to play for you. I'm going to play an audio of a friend of mine doing an imitation of Richard Nixon, saying the words of the "I Have a Dream" speech.
And so, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We will hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
Thank you to my friend Tom Goff. He recorded that imitation of Richard Nixon a couple of years ago for me. The moral of the story is not that Martin Luther King was the only person who ever had charisma and the rest of us are screwed. The moral of the story is it's not what you say, it's also how you say it. The "I Have a Dream" speech is amazing on both levels. The words in that speech were amazing. And some of those words were not written down on paper. That was a long, long time ago. So he was standing with a literal piece of paper. And when he was done, a young man, he handed the piece of paper that the speech was written on to the young man. And he was so in tune with his message, so in tune with his soul's purpose, so in tune with the crowd, that when a gospel singer in one of the front rows, he said, "I have a dream." And she said, "Tell us about your dream, Martin." And he riffed. And when the young man who had that piece of paper compared it to the video of the speech, there were things that he said that were not in the written down version. There's some of the ones that today's words would be for it went the most viral, that we play again and again and again. He was riffing when she said, "Tell us about your dream." The most important thing was Martin Luther King Jr.'s presence, the way he embodied those words, the way he was that connected to the crowd. He was in complete alignment with his message. And we can all do that too, in our own way. We are all born with charisma. The way to unleash our charisma is not to do an imitation of Martin Luther King Jr. It's not to do it the way we think we need to do it. It's not to do it the way someone else does it when they get up and say, "Do it like this," that equivalent of a line reading. Your presence comes from your soul. It comes from being who you are and allowing the audience to see the real you. If you're living your soul's purpose and sharing your magic and longing to awaken and energize and move people through speaking in all the forms, please take this message to heart. Your presence doesn't come from your clothing. Your inner radiance can't be found in your slides. Charisma does not come from what you say. Magnetism is not about what you do. Your one-of-a-kind radiance gets unleashed by being fully who you are. You do not need to pretend to be someone else or do it their way. You can be you, deeply, passionately, presently, vulnerably, powerfully, raw, authentically you, by letting the crowd in to see you and feel you in all of your sensitive, powerful, present, and graceful glory. The way you can unleash your charisma, your 1 in 8 billion people radiance, is to tap into your soul and allow your vibration to ring out from there. That is being you amplified. How do we do that? We are our instrument, body, mind, heart, soul. This thing here is the physical instrument. We can unleash it by taking care of it the way we would take care of a Stradivarius violin or a 1959 custom Gibson Les Paul electric guitar. My husband is a singer-songwriter, so I'm learning about all the different values of guitars, and I have heard him talk about Gibson, Les Paul. I looked it up. It's a guitar that's over $10,000. Imagine what would happen if you cared for your instrument the way my husband would take care of that Les Paul electric guitar worth over $10,000 if he had one. As sensitive visionaries, ambitious empaths, loving rebels, light workers, soul workers, we, body, mind, heart, soul, we are that Stradivarius violin. And it's like someone told us to park our cars on top of those beautiful instruments. What I mean by that is they told us to suppress our emotions, to hide our true nature, to put on an "I've got it all pulled together, I'm fine" mask in order to be taken seriously. They made us into the toy drum version of ourselves instead of the real, resonating, resounding drum version of ourselves. They choked down our inner radiance. In the intro and the outro and different parts of this podcast, there's a Tibetan singing bowl that plays. That beautiful Tibetan singing bowl is how we were all born resonating. And they turned us into this version of that. this version of ourselves, in order to come back home to ourselves and unleash our one of a kind radiance, we got to do a little bit of conscious, soulful practice to allow the energy to flow again, to release the trauma that we may not even be realized is still in our muscle tissue of speaking to perform, and to find and unleash our true voices. Before I go there, I want to share a time where I failed miserably at all of this. When I first started my speaking coaching business, I was already teaching theater, and I was the first teacher in a conservatory program. My niche in that place was helping them find their voice, literally, and their creative voice. I was the voice teacher and I was the acting teacher, the beginning acting teacher. And they came to me first, and I helped them. I used to love that. I still do, that Michelangelo quote: I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set him free. That's what it felt like I was doing. It still feels like that is what I'm doing when I work with actors and speakers to this day. I see, feel what is in the way, what society has layered on top of that angel, our soul's voice coming across. And I get curious and I ask questions and I help us let go of it. And I'm walking that path myself in my life. So I had already started to feel out a lot of the essence of the way that I work now when I went to Toastmasters to get some coaching clients, primarily. I always evoked the creativity within the person rather than trying to control everything they were doing, because it's easier, it's more fun for me the way I'm built to help evoke their creativity and then shape it. So I'm coaching speakers and I go to this pro Toasties meeting, and I had spoken a few times within the meeting, many times, because you speak a lot. And by pro Toasties, these were professional speakers. They had formed their own group. They weren't just interested in giving toasts at people's weddings, which is how Toastmasters was sort of formed, rumor has it. So it was like an 8-minute meet Lauri talk. And I took their formula and I crafted what I was going to say. And I walked into the room and I completely shit all over my own path, my own method. I failed at it miserably. And part of what I know is that that arena seduced me in a way into not doing what I know to be the soulful speaking way. And I'll do more on that in another episode at some point. The world baits us back into our trauma to perform and our masks. And I showed up, and my subconscious intention was, I'm going to prove that people need speaking coaching, and I'm going to prove that I'm the one to do it for them. And there was so much tension in my body that I showed up in my deranged mannequin mask. Tight from head to toe, every single muscle working, subconscious intention is to prove. Meanwhile, the only person I'm actually trying to prove it to is to myself. And I'm trying to drag them kicking and screaming toward agreeing with something that I believe. So when we're in the outside world, where everybody is suppressing their true nature, or the vast majority is suppressing their true nature and trying to prove things, how do we come home to our true selves? How do we set ourselves free? I have an answer. It is the 3-word version of the method to my madness, or my genius, or my superpower, or my gifts. Those three words are intend, align, invite. Now, it's as if I've just verbally told you how to throw a perfect spiral, or take your golf swing to another level, or shoot 3-pointers like Steph Curry. I am going to break this down right now so you have a little bit more meaning to it. Intend is setting an intention from your soul for the vibe you want to create in the room. It's an intention that is one of service. I mentioned in my, oh my God, I failed. I shit all over everything I'm doing in the world. I did not take the time to take the wheel away from my inner critics and put my soul in charge. My intention was something like, hire me, validate my existence. A soulful intention would be, I want to help create an aliveness in the room that's beyond what you've ever felt before. Aliveness, to take it down to one word. A sense of possibility, a sense of hope, a sense of awakening. Any one of those words would have been a much more soul-driven intention. In intend, align, invite, inviting is like the bookend for that intention. So as we're speaking, if we're doing intend, align, invite, we're looking, listening, and feeling for signs of that intention coming to life right before our eyes. We are treating it as a conversation rather than monologuing at them. That's what I did. I monologued at them, and I'm going to tell you, when I looked out at the faces, what I saw was a bunch of people with their hair blown back like this. If you're listening and not looking, they looked like cartoon characters. Like they were literally leaning away from me, and I swear their hair looked like it was kind of being blown backwards. That is not listening to their nonverbal half of the conversation. There was a fire hosing kind of energy out the front of my body as well. So we set an intention for the vibe we want to create in the room. And then we align our body, our breath, and our energy with our highest, most expressive selves, the full drum version of ourselves, the Tibetan singing bowl actually ringing out. This is where we really could spend a lot of time, just like people do when they're trying to elevate their golf swing. And I'll give you a taste now. It's aligning the body by opening the heart to the people in the room, sending ourselves out through our heart and receiving their nonverbal half of the conversation back in through the heart. It's seeing the window to the soul, their eyes, and allowing them to see ours, to see our souls through our eyes. Rather than physically caving in the chest or doing what I was doing, which was like hardening and barreling forward and puffing my chest up and out. It's having a balance of effort and ease in the body, not collapsing and not, like I did in my story, working too hard, which repels people. It's aligning the breath by nourishing the body with more breath and allowing that breath to support carrying the sound of our voices across the room. We literally touch people with our sound waves. And if we nourish our bodies and allow the breath to do the work, rather than using muscle and having that do the work, that touches people in a very different way. It brings the vibration of our soul back in on the E Motion, the energy in motion, all that emotion that people told us we were too much if we were expressing. It all becomes harnessed to touch people in a different way. And then aligning our energy is allowing ourselves to energetically fill the room, radiating energy out of us 360 degrees in every direction. It was shooting out the front of my body like a fire hose in that example, which is very different. Effort is not the same thing as energy. Efforting out the front of our bodies and that kind of fire hose thing is very different from having energy radiating out of us 360 degrees in every direction. This is part of what Martin Luther King Jr. did when he was on the steps of the memorial. He was hugging everyone in that space in a vibe of that dream that he was talking about. Again, his message was aligned with his presence. Align your energy by hugging the physical room that you're in and the energetic room that you're creating. Intend, align, invite. That is how to come back to the vibration of our souls and to allow the words to be formed out of that. And it is as if I've just told you how to throw a perfect spiral or elevate the golf swing or shoot 3-pointers like Steph Curry does. And if you're not a sports ball person, those are sports. And it doesn't mean when you hear that we're ready to play in the Super Bowl. It takes practice. And the good thing about speaking, if this is my physical instrument, I can practice anytime, anywhere that I'm using my voice. So I'm going to ask you the next time you speak, whether you're shooting a TikTok or doing a TED Talk or shooting your own video or doing a Zoom presentation, give this intend, align, invite a try. Try out saying in your mind, intend, align, invite. Notice how it feels different for you. Notice what shifts in terms of your impact. And then shoot me a message. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn, or you can comment right on this if you're watching it on YouTube. Shoot me a message and let me know how it goes. And while you're at it, let me know what burning curiosities you have. I really want to bring you what you are hungry for. So let me know what questions you have, what burning curiosities you have, and I will answer your questions by working them into an episode.